Parks Commission July 6th, 2023. And before getting started, we wanted to welcome a new Parks Commission member, Chris Peguero.
Thank you.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Christopher Peguero. He, him, his. I live here in Fitchburg and work for Promega. I have had many, many years of public service working for the city of Seattle before moving here to Fitchburg a couple of years ago with my family. And prior to my work at Promega, I worked for the city of Madison in the Parks Division as the Assistant Superintendent for Parks, where I am very proud to have served and hopefully we'll bring that experience here on the commission. So thanks for the welcome. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a motion for approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Any corrections, additions, subtractions? All right. Those in favor of the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Public appearances for non-agenda items. We have a citizen, Jake Johnson, who would like to speak. And for all of our public comment, we stick to 3 minutes as best we can, 3 or less.
I shall. Jake Johnson, 2617 Targhee Street here in Fitchburg. I used to be on Park Commission. I appreciate you all and what your service. I know what it's like being on that side of things, so thanks for what you're doing. I actually did want to talk about item 6A, and I talked to Sue that she would allow me to do that. So there was a dog bite incident at the dog park that Scott knows more information about than I do. I am here representing the Fitchburg Dog Park advocates who basically partnered with the city in building this dog park. And we adopted the rules several years ago in this setting. And I just wanted to remind everyone here, at dog parks, bites do occur. Sometimes, not at dog parks, bites do occur, bad things happen. There are rules in place. As a direct result of the incident, we made some new signage to remind park users about aggressive dogs. If you have an aggressive dog or an aggressive human, we don't want you at the dog park. Aggressive behavior is prohibited, and it's sort of a system that kind of self-polices, for lack of a better term. I think someone has asked for a park attendant to be there at all times. I think that's not only not reasonable, but totally out of the realm of things. If you actually look at the dangers in our park systems, playground equipment is the #1 danger in our park systems. My own son broke his leg on a slide with grandma, and we're not banning slides or grandmas from parks. So that being said, I do take dog bites, I do take people's safety very seriously. I think our rules in place take that very seriously. There's accountability in the park system as well as in the law. In this particular case, it is being resolved through voluntary commitment. There's no lawsuits that I'm aware of. But those constant reminders through signage, through our Facebook page, just to remind people about good behaviors at dog parks is something that we're on top of, and I just wanted to let you all know that. It's an unfortunate incident. It does happen. It happened in my neighbor's yard. We've had dogs bite other dogs in our yard that were on leashes. So I just don't want the big alarm bells to be like we need to police things harder. I think we just need to be a little more vigilant on our reminders. So,
Okay, thank you.
all. Thank you.
Any other non-agenda item appearances, statements? Okay, then we'll move on to review and approve our agenda. A motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Yeah, and we've got a busy agenda, but we'll just stick to it as far as I can see. Those in favor of the agenda as it is written, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, our agenda stays as is. We're at action items. 5A is the free little library, Fitchburg Springs Park. We do have one citizen comment about this particular item, and before we get started with Scott's comment, I remembered I have this. Ari, did you have a remark you wanted to make on this? So we'll have the citizen comment first.
Sure.
And then,
Do you want me to?
speaking in support.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I also live in the area. I also have a little free library that's kind of close to where this new library would go, and I think that this is a spectacular idea. I love the idea of encouraging all of our citizens to read more and just enjoy books, as well as enjoy, being outside a little bit more, just an excuse to kind of like walk by something interesting. In addition, some of the books from my little free library have made their way over to that park. And so I think that, having them have a home over there at that park that is, nearby to mine would be really wonderful. So I'm in full support of this.
Thank you very much. Okay, now Scott, did you have any introductions to make?
Not really any general comments. Typically what we'll do if we have a request, I'll ask the requester to appear before the Park Commission, which it looks like Elizabeth is here. And certainly I always preface the Little Free Library with the idea that they're going to be responsible for maintenance and those kinds of things and any damage that may occur, but certainly we also encourage it, but certainly with the help of the applicant or the person who's going to install it and build it and manage it. So.
Okay, and another housekeeping thing we should do is a motion to approve the free little library in Fitchburg Springs Park.
Motion to approve?
Seconding, Heidi?
I'll second.
Okay, very good. Please go right ahead.
It works? Okay. Thank you. Elizabeth, and this is David, my partner. We live on the south end of Fitchburg, but I walk by that Fitchburg Springs Library or Park all the time, and 3 different occasions I've seen books that probably came from Ari's there, so that kind of spurred the idea that it could use a little free library. Ari and I were texting a little bit and thought they could work together with her little free library on Longview, this one, and then of course the set at Leopold, where they could maybe the books could transition from one to another. And according to the Little Free Library website, libraries that are next to benches do the best because people approach the library, they see a book and think, oh, that looks interesting, and sit down and read it. So there's a bench right there at this park, and that can lead to more people utilizing the park than currently do. And then, I don't know, I just thought I'd throw out there was a recent article in the State Journal about the reading gap, and that the Madison School District has some of the kids near the library, park would be part of, have some of the worst reading gaps in Dane County. 10% of black students in grades 3 through 8 scored proficient or higher on the exam, only 21% of Hispanic students, but 45% of their white counterparts. And one of the recommendations to start kind of dismantling this disparity is to just have more kids around, or more books around, and kids exposed to more books. Obviously, this won't solve that problem, but having more books in the neighborhood can't hurt. In terms of design, it'll be a double-door library. We started constructing it. We got paint that matches the yellow and the red of the playground that's there, and then defer to Scott and the Parks Department about where in the park we should put it that makes it easiest for lawn mowing and maintenance. And we're committed to maintaining it. I walk there regularly. Dave works right next door, so we'll be able to check it, repair anything that needs to, and keep it stocked. I don't know if there are any questions.
Questions, anyone? Comments? Well, my comment is thank you for offering to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
It'll be fun.
Seems like a great idea.
When my grandchildren visit, they want to go to all of them that they can get to in the area, because free books, it's very exciting, so, no, it's really great. Well, if there's no other comments, questions, we can vote. Okay. Those in favor of the free little library at Fitchburg Springs Park, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Our motion passes. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have, for 5B, is Hillside Heights Playground Update, and I have a lot of forms here. 2 people have registered to speak. I just want to make sure I don't misrepresent anybody here. Okay. So we have 2 people who will speak, Katie Parpart and Mary Scheumann, and so they can make their way on up. And I will read just a list of those who are registering here. Let's see, I think I have 2. Mary and Molly, are you the,
2 different people.
okay, got it.
I have the same name as my sister-in-law.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got me there, okay. And this is a situation where it's difficult to do a motion in a second to get conversation started because we're kind of not quite sure where we're going to end up. So I'm going to just start with your comments, 3 minutes, your pros at this now, having been here last.
Sure, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I have spoke to all of you before, I believe in the last meeting that we had last month, and you guys have all seen in the emails the proposal that we talked about last time, as well as the petition. I sent an email today with a revised petition. So I'm just gonna do like a little short version of that, but to refresh your minds, the main points are that there was a new park installed in Hillside Heights, new playground installed in Hillside Heights Park that's 32 and a half feet from the edge of a retaining pond. The efforts to put a barrier up between the park and the pond was a vegetative barrier that is not sufficient now and probably won't be sufficient in 10 to 15 years. To keep children from exploring or sliding into or falling into the water. There is also wildlife in the ponds that children are drawn to, like frogs, ducks, geese. My son there's a bullfrog in there, loves to run right up to the water to try to find the frog. Caretakers supervising multiple children are often put in positions where they are not able to stop a child from running or falling into a pond. This could happen when a mother is feeding one child, changing a diaper, or attending to a different child that's injured while the other one is playing. There are also special needs children in our neighborhood that require extra safety precautions, and this park should be safe for people of all abilities. Playgrounds are an essential space for children's physical and social development. However, when located near bodies of water, they pose a potential risk to children's safety. In order to protect the children in the Hillside Heights neighborhood from drowning accidents and in other parks throughout Fitchburg, we are proposing a reevaluation and update of the lack of city code regarding the placement of parks near bodies of water. In the future, when the city is polling residents for park construction, a preliminary location of the park with clear and defined construction locations should be included so that these issues can be viewed by the community prior to the construction beginning. And then that the city installs a fence lining the southern edge of the retention pond that shares a border with the playground, or a fence that encloses the playground itself. Our reasoning behind these proposals are to prevent accidental drownings, enhance parental supervision, and to raise awareness and complying regarding safe play near water. The principles you received in your emails that I talked about before, on each of these points, they go into depth on each of these points and include references and recommendations from reputable sources like the American Pediatric Association, the CDC, and the American Red Cross. We have also provided a proposal at the previous meetings that go into more detail. We have gotten 61 in-person and online signatures obtained by community members. 24 people on those documents are directly from our neighborhood, which The remaining signatures are from concerned family members, other families that visit our playground from outside of Hillside Heights, and swim instructors. We have decided to include these in the petition since it's a public park open to anyone who would like to use the facilities.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Katie Parpart. I'm a resident of Hillside Heights as well. And I'm actually, I realized that last time I spoke, some of you heard me get very sad. But I forgot to also mention I'm also a professional. I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for over 15 years in the community. So my life is safety of others. And then I became a mother. I have 4 children, ages ranging from 13 to 4. My son has special needs. He is 4. He has autism. So part of the process of this was we were excited to get new equipment, but upon realizing it was going to be close to the water, that became extremely problematic, unfortunately. And then the process of discussing more safety measures put in place due to the proximity of the pond did not quite go as planned. So I am in support and requesting some kind of fencing around the pond. My son is a flight risk. He does not understand how to keep him safe. I do not think it's fair that I cannot take him to the park. That would be unfortunate for him. He loves being outside. I had mentioned last time that due to the proximity of the pond, if I had one of my in-laws or my parents watch, they would not be able to run after him like I can. Fortunately, I'm still physically able enough to chase him. If you've ever watched a 4-year-old who has an idea in their head go for it, it is very fast. And a kiddo with special needs, they just tend to go even faster. I've worked with a lot of kids over the years who are lightning fast. So I would really appreciate if we realize that a mistake was made and it happens, and I understand this is more costly than anticipated, but things happen. We're all human. And I'm just asking for support to make the park safe for the children who reside there presently and any children who would like to come visit. It would be a shame to not utilize the park that was put in place because it is no longer safe enough for any child or any adult to attend that child. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question, Katie.
Yes.
I heard you say a fence around the pond.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
meant a fence around the playground?
No, we're not going to fence the pond. That would be weird. Yes, around the park, whether it be the perimeter directly behind the park or enclosing the park.
The playground.
The playground.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. When I say park, my brain says equipment. Yeah, I apologize. Thank you
It's all
for
right.
correcting me.
You're not the only one that it's an interchangeable phrase.
Yeah, that'd be a really big
Yeah,
fence.
that's okay. Okay, thank you both. Thank you. I'll go through the others who have registered in support of something along the lines that has been suggested by the 2 speakers. Diane Liskins, in support. And, Lionel Olson, in support. Lionel, did you want to speak? Oh, okay. Come on up.
My name is Lionel Olson. I live at 2414 Lisa Lane, which is directly west of the pond. There's no barrier between my house and the pond. And I've had 3 children that have been brought up there from that address from 1989 on. So I have been in that pond. I have chased dogs in that pond. I have pulled kids out of that pond. They were playing. About 15 years ago, they deepened the pond. And on the west end of the pond, there was a large boulder, and they tried digging around that. And it's probably about 10 to 15 feet deep, right where they had dug out, trying to get at that boulder. Anyhow, as a background, when I moved here in 1989, 1 month after we had moved down, we were in the new public pool. I can't think of that. My mind is going now. Okay. Anyhow, and my son drowned on the 6th of July, 1989. So I would suggest that it would be advisable to take and put some sort of a barrier, at least up along the park side, because all too often balls and stuff get knocked in, and now with the volleyball, not everyone serves correctly, or they get blocked correctly. So that would be could be a potential problem. The other problem is that the bank is very steep there, and the mud is very slippery. Having ended up in there on more than one occasion, I can assure everyone that it is hard to get out. Also, I have at this point a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old grandchildren. And even though they both can swim, I know all too frequently that during crises, people forget things. So I would request that you look into putting some sort of a barrier at least across that south side of that pond to prevent balls and other stuff from going in there. That's basically all I've got to say, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I'll go through the other, those who've registered on the matter. Judy Bruning on Jan Drive, registering in support of a fence around the playground area. Bonnie Moshkin on Kathleen Street, support of a fence for safety around the play equipment. Carl Scheumann requesting a fence around the playground area. I have one where it's only a signature and I can't read the signature, but in support of a fence around the area. And Molly Scheumann, passionate about the safety of the children and would like the fence that is needed, and also in favor of a bench being placed between the two standing parks. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, for your comments. Scott, is there anything you'd like to fill us in on? Okay.
If I would, Sue, I'd maybe just call the Park Commission's attention to the memo that I included in your packet, and which kind of gave a summary of the process that we went through, and certainly it's noted the idea of the location of the new playground, but I did include in there how staff came to that conclusion or that location, and then also I did reach out to the City and Villages, our loss control insurance representative, and that was the information that I have been sharing as far as the safety concerns that when I posed the question to them, those were the responses that they provided to staff.
Okay. Well, for purposes of discussion, I'll propose a motion that we recommend fencing the playground completely, the whole perimeter, with a gate that would open to the south. That would be directly away from the water. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll discuss it from here. Any comments David? Alder Herbst?
So I don't favor enclosing the playground. I favor putting a fence along the pond. I've walked it, roughly anywhere from 80 to 100 feet along the pond. There's a slope down, so it won't be that visible. I'm not crazy about a fenced-in parking or fenced-in park. I think there's other hazards that presents, and I think our hazard is the park. I would add that I have, they're older now, but I had 2 attention deficit children, so I sympathize, that I couldn't take my eyes off of them, and this is a hazard, and I feel best compromise is to put a fence, kind of that length, 80 to 100 feet on that side of the park to take care of the problem.
Go ahead.
I guess I agree with Alder Herbst that I walked it and my first impression was fencing off the playground itself potentially creates a barrier for other children to be able to access the fence. Potentially if they do have a wheelchair or other, I just feel as though it's not as inclusive having the playground itself fenced. And I was also curious, Scott, for your guidance. As I was walking it, knowing we just got a heavy rain, but knowing that area has had water conditions in the past, is a fence structurally sound, or do you know if there would be something concern of actually having, just knowing that water intrusion has been a concern for that area?
Well, I think one thing that I'd certainly want to talk to is the stormwater group from the engineering department on how they would feel about, a fence on their portion of the property, if you would, regarding maintenance and those kinds of things. So I think if it's decided to put a fence, I think we would need to place that on park property, if you would, not stormwater facility property, because they maintain it and those kinds of things. So I think we'd have to be cognizant of where we placed the fence, if you would. So yeah, I definitely would want to check with stormwater to make sure, the location of the fence would still allow them to maintain their facility and those kinds of things.
So along those lines then, Scott, are the shrubs that were planted on the park side of things?
That is and actually I don't know per se where the stormwater facility ends and the park begins, but certainly the tall grass area around the pond I would consider to be stormwater, and then where we planted or were on a planted started to get the vegetation barrier, that would be park property, I would suspect. So that's how I would kind of view it.
Okay.
So whether you put the fence between the landscape material that's currently planted there, and it'd be something that we'd need to take a closer look at.
Exactly where to site it.
Right.
Heidi Reynolds?
Hi. So I guess the more we talk about this, I guess the more I'm leaning toward what Dave and Sarah both said, and where more it's around the pond than opposed to the park. And I guess, Scott, I'm curious. So what is sort of the hesitancy to put, and I don't know how much you'd need, but I know I believe we still do have some leftover fence that was taken down from a baseball diamond, I believe. And so I'm wondering what would be the hesitancy of using that to sort of create a barrier, at least for the time being.
Well, and certainly, Heidi, I'm a believer that it's a case-by-case scenario, but we have plenty of, stormwater facilities in parks. So, if we begin to start, cordoning off or fencing off stormwater facilities, is this going to be something that, other people are going to request and those kinds of things?
Well, I think you're right. It's case by case, but I don't recall seeing any other parks that the playground equipment is this close to the stormwater.
Agreed. But certainly, the idea of a hazard, if you would, a stormwater facility there's plenty of stormwater facilities in open space and park spaces. So, I think they're all available for, or subject to, kids playing in them and goofing around in them and those kinds of things, so.
Also, I don't mind at all leaning towards just a long, straight fence that is a physical barrier to slow down a running child, or as Mr. Olson pointed out, a ball that's starting to roll downhill or it was kicked in the wrong direction heading towards the ponds. And it's just a tight fit, everything that's in there, and sort of a unique situation. So, but Scott, is there still fencing from that which was removed? Okay.
There is, and I guess I would defer. I'd like to try, instead of putting chain link fence there, to try and maybe think of something different if it's decided to put some kind of a chain or some kind of a fence barrier there, something that might be more natural or more kind of blend into the to the environment there.
Yeah, that's can be a consideration, but also with the shrubs that are going to grow, et cetera. I just tend to think that after it's been there a while, it's sort of a fence like that just sort of fades into the background, especially if there are shrubs and the like planted. So personally, to me, I don't see a problem with it. Anything else is going to cost more.
Right.
Would it?
And I'm also thinking that, if I agree that the natural barrier would look much better, and I think that's something that in a few years would be much more viable, but I don't see a problem really with putting a chain link fence, like you said, straight line, just to stop a ball or stop a child from running, give a parent a chance to catch up, even if that fence, we consider it temporary while the natural barrier grows.
The other thing, too, when you're walking there, is that it's possible that where a fence would go, the slope is already beginning. So a 5-foot fence, which is what is the material we're talking about we had from a different project, it's not going to appear to be 5 feet tall when it's installed closer to where it starts to curve down. So it's not quite as an imposing view, perhaps, as if it were something that were put exactly up against the perimeter of the playground. Judd, anything else you wanted to mention?
I can't confirm that the fence is 5 foot. How tall is that fence?
It might be 5.5, Scott.
Oh, okay.
It's in that range, it's plus or minus a half foot.
Okay, all right.
And I guess we'd certainly want to maintain around that fence, right? We just don't want stuff growing up in the fence, or we do? Oh.
Well, I don't know. There's tall grass that comes right up to the edge, and I know you say, and I agree and understand, you need to know where the park area ends and the public works begins, but I think maybe our alder could help us navigate that with you. You're on.
I should be, I'm chairman of Public Works.
That's right. So.
Can I have
Yeah,
one thing?
please.
The safety of our children is the paramount concern. But also, this pond is necessary. Your houses probably couldn't exist without that. We have to manage the stormwater, and if you don't have that, then a lot of times there might be a big rain, there's a gusher going down somewhere that a child can be caught in, So this allows us, to have our homes. We have to be able to keep the stormwater in a certain area, to keep our waterways clean. So, the pond is necessary. But again, the safety of our children is our paramount concern.
I would just add that it feels like there's several ideas coming out, and I appreciate the neighborhood's concern, and I don't want to propose off-putting a solution to find what the best solution is, but I think if there's a temporary fence that we could potentially put in there while we determine what the best solution is and the most cost-effective way to do that, I think that makes sense. In my mind, it sounds like there's one proposal to put a fence around the actual playground area and one near the retention pond. And so I think there's another question around what the Public Works, what we need for drainage. So I think there's a few questions on the table before we can come to a solution, but I'd like to fast track it. And if there's a way we can put something temporary, I've seen fences that have temporary postings that are until something more solid or permanent can be placed there. But I feel that there's a lot of questions in regards to what the appropriate solution is. And preferably, I'd like to have the community also give some feedback in regards to what those solutions might be.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to mention a temporary solution and then forgot about it, so I'm glad you brought it up. And you may have in the shop things that would work quite well. I have a roll of blaze orange temporary fence that I will hand deliver to you, although I don't know how long it goes.
We can come up with
Yeah.
some fence.
Right, I mean, there's you've probably seen it, a very quick and easy 4 or 5 foot tall metal U-posts that you pound in, and then you just slide the fencing over it. So it's easy to take in and take out as a temporary measure. So I would like to modify my motion to just, the motion would be changed to be that we're favoring a straight line fence that is the length of which and location is determined between Board of Public Works, parks staff, maintenance staff, and with input from the neighbors. And that's the motion. And we would it be fair to say then we just revisit this next month for more definitive answer? Okay, that's in there too.
I would modify my second and agree with that.
Okay, any other discussion? No? Okay. Those in favor of that modified motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for bringing your comments to us. Okay, 5C, ordinance 2023-0-11, requiring tree preservation plans to be included with preliminary plats by creating section 24-4G of Fitchburg Code of Ordinances. I do have a number of people who would like to speak. Make sure I have these in order. Okay, 2 people who wish to speak, and that's Ari Lowe and Sue Fieber. So you can come on up. Yes, Ari and Sue, come on up.
You're going to speak too? Yeah, we're going to go first.
Go ahead.
Ken?
All right. And you know we're, thank you.
Okay, quick.
Okay.
Nope. It's good?
It's-
Okay, perfect. I just want to say that I am in full support of having, of the plan that was adopted by the Plan Commission that requires developers to list out and survey all trees that are 6 inches in width or larger and identify the 10 species of trees. I don't see why, I don't see a great value in limiting it to 18 inches because of timber regulations, which seem very irrelevant to the question at hand about conservation. And I just feel very passionately about allowing our citizens and our youth in particular to appreciate trees, and this can be one step in the right direction.
Thank you.
That was too fast. Okay, this is good, right?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Sue Fieber. I live at 2815 Jacqueline Drive in Fitchburg, have lived there since '01. and I am a member of the Tree Advisory Committee. I want to address the issue of additional cost to the developer being passed on to the buyer or renter of the resulting housing units. This is mentioned in the city's staff document included in your packet. First, I worked for many years for a nonprofit organization that developed affordable housing, so I realize that development budgets are tight. However, I don't buy the argument that the tree ordinance will require, as drafted by the TAC, will require such large expenditures as to significantly drive up the cost of the housing produced. Second, the city working group suggests that the ordinance as proposed by the TAC, if it's enacted, developers will simply clear-cut their sites before applying for the initial plat. I would ask, what is the cost of that clear-cutting? If done before a project is brought before the city, who's going to bear that cost? The lot I live on has 7 very large old trees, and believe me, I know the cost of tree work. Removing a single large old tree from a site in advance of a development proposal is going to run at least several $1,000s. As are developers actually suggesting that they would incur such costs simply to thwart the intent of the ordinance? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. As long as we're, let me turn this up. I have the other comments sheets, and we have Terrell Brock from Tree Advisory Committee registering in support of the draft by the Tree Advisory Committee, and Brendy Hoffer, also of Tree Advisory Committee, registering in support as provided, the document provided by Tree Advisory Committee, and Kay Sawyer, also Tree Advisory Committee, in support of the ordinances drafted by Tree Advisory Committee. Thank you all for providing your comments. Now, we also have Anna Healy is our forester, front and center, and we have 2 other members of the Tree Advisory Committee, Craig Rapp and Linda Brewer. They're on the screen. And Craig and Linda worked specifically on a lot of the lengthy list of meetings that occurred to draft and create the ordinance. They're both Tree Advisory Committee members, and they worked with Anna. And so I'm really inviting them to be part of the discussion where they're not limited to 3 minutes, because they're really the authors and can work with Anna to present the information that we have. Now, as the housekeeping matter, we could ask for a motion in a second, and I think I'm just going to offer, I'm going to move to approve the tree protection ordinance that was also approved by the Plan Commission earlier this month, or late last month, rather. And that one is the one that's in the packet. So is there a second to that?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. We can start some discussion then. Anna, you're here. Do you want to go ahead and go through things? Or?
I can start kind of, for the new members on the commission, I can start going through some highlights of our presentation, unless either Linda or Craig would like to do that.
I think it's all you, Anna.
Okay, great. So feel free to jump in if I forget something, or you feel like there needs to be more clarification. So most of the members of the committee have already seen this presentation, so I'm not going to really linger too much. It's just going to be some of the high points and maybe add a little bit of additional information. So thank you very much for your time and attention. All right. So just to kind of recap, the whole reason that we started working on a tree protection ordinance was because it is in the comprehensive plan, policy 1.3.6, to develop a tree protection ordinance, a tree diversity plan, and a tree canopy of 30%, a tree canopy goal of 30% in the urban service area. And I just wanted to mention that these three things all work together. While we're really focusing on the tree protection ordinance at this meeting, it's a key component of the other two items in this policy. For example, we can really work on the species diversity from a tree planting perspective, but we can't really work on age diversity of our tree canopy with tree planting because we're really limited in terms of we can only plant trees that are quite young. And so part of this tree protection ordinance, not only will it help with our canopy goal, it'll also help with our tree diversity from an age class perspective. And I just wanted to mention that so folks understood that we're not just picking this, with, on its own. It does work with other goals in the comprehensive plan. And of course, we all know that trees are quite, provide a lot of social and ecosystem services. And just to let folks know, I know this did come up at Plan Commission. One of the Plan Commission members mentioned the rural residential criteria, and she wanted to make sure that what we were proposing matched the rural residential development criteria, and indeed it does. This is Section B3 of the rural residential development criteria, and you can see that a forest management plan approved by the city forester is required for improvements placed on wooded or partially wooded sites, and that has to include a heritage tree protection plan. So we are incongruent with what's already happening. And basically what Tree Advisory had proposed was additional requirements in Section 24.4 of the preliminary platting process, and additions in clarifying definitions in Section 54.4, which is the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry portion. And this is basically what Tree Advisory proposed in terms of locating all the desirable trees of 6 inches DBH or larger on a preliminary plat. And the desirable tree is a tree that is 6 inches DBH or higher, and it's of all the species listed here. All of the quercus species, shagbark hickory, bitternut hickory, hackberry, white pine, sugar maple, honey locust, and American basswood. And then, of course, with this would be any trees that could be saved that fit this definition. There would be a requirement for a tree preservation plan. So a tree preservation plan would be submitted for any trees to be preserved. So, and as has been mentioned, Linda and Craig really have done a tremendous amount of legwork to get to this point. We didn't pull anything out of the air, really. We didn't really, we definitely did our homework in terms of, we started here at Park Commission in March of 2021. We met with city attorneys, we met with the planning and zoning administrator several times, met with the mayor, met with the city attorneys, met with city administrators, and then once we had a draft, we went to Park Commission, Planning Commission, and RCC, and also Committee of the Whole. So I think the Tree Advisory has done a really great job of getting feedback, making changes, making adjustments with feedback from a whole variety of stakeholders. And just to clarify, this also is something I think there's been some confusion. This would only be during the preliminary platting process. And just for context, if you look at the comp plan, I think it's map 4.3. Most of our preliminary plats are planned to come from the eastern side of Fitchburg and kind of the where Lacey Road meets Fitch-Rona, that part of the city. So it's a pretty limited area where preliminary plats will be coming from if we follow the comp plan. And it would require review from Plan Commission and review by the urban forester and naturalist. And then we had all these FAQs, and I'll just kind of run through these really quickly. The purpose is for planning. The more information you have, the better plans that you can make. And, why are we doing this now? I kind of mentioned it was in the 2009 comp plan, it's in this last comp plan, and it does work together to create with our other goals of the canopy goal and the 30% canopy goal, and also the tree diversity goal. It really works together to make, a vibrant and resilient urban forest for the entire city. And, I already kind of listed everything that has been done so far. And the requirement would be for the folks coming to get in the preliminary plating process. They'd have to identify the trees in a tree survey, and anything that could be saved, they'd have to produce a tree preservation plan. And there isn't a requirement to preserve them if it's not feasible. I think we've kind of already gone through most of this. Anyway, and there are other tree protection ordinances in the city of Wisconsin. Our neighbor to the east, town of Dunn, they have a tree protection ordinance that protects heritage trees. We were looking at the city of Onalaska, where they have a tree protection ordinance that really tries to save trees in the development process. And Mequon kind of hits out of the park. They pretty much regulate all trees, public and private, and it's unlawful to take them down. And just as an example, I know this was not part of a preliminary plating process, but I didn't really want to sort of make any of our current development community feel defensive by using, a current example of trees that came down, in some of our current developments that were recently platted. This is actually the courtyard that is adjacent to McKee Farms Park. And, if you look at this site, there are a lot of trees there. The one that really kind of gets the attention from a preservation standpoint would be the oak tree that's in the, it's this oak tree that's, I don't know if you can see where I'm kind of pointing. It's the oak tree that's in the south west corner of the property. It's pretty much right on the property line with the, this is the, I believe this is the Schumann Greenway, or the Schumann stormwater facility. At any rate, this is what the tree looked like last July, a year ago, and then by September, it was taken down because they had to put some paths in to give people access to the park. And I just firmly believe if we had thought it through, if that tree had been on the plans, and we had, there was a way to accommodate both the path and potentially both the path and the tree. So at any rate, I guess I feel like I've been talking a lot, and you guys already kind of know a lot of this stuff, so I don't want to waste too much time. But I guess if there's any questions or discussion, or if Linda or Craig have other things to add, I guess that would be great.
Okay, and just also in our packet, the actual.
Yes, DBH.
Is,
In
well,
H.
yeah, that, but on page 12 of 65 is the actual version that the Plan Commission approved and Community Economic Development Authority also approved. And there's other things in the packet that are important, but we have now Craig and Linda. Craig, would you like to go ahead, or Linda, who's?
Yeah, sure. I really don't have much to add. I think Anna did a great job of summarizing everything.
Thank you.
It's been I think a pretty well thought out process that's gotten us here today. We think that this version approved by the Plan Commission is going to be a good step towards conserving some of our valuable and frankly irreplaceable trees in Fitchburg, and hope you all consider it carefully and really give it your support. I'm happy to help Anna and Linda field questions, but I really think Anna covered all the big points I had, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Linda, anything to add?
Well, I just wanted to say, yes, so the revised draft in front of all of you today is the one that was passed both by Plan Commission and by CETA. So both of those committees have seen the draft and approved it. And what it did is it reinstated the 6-inch DBH, which I think is absolutely critical. And you have a chart in your packet from the Morton Bowles Arboretum that describes 18-inch diameters. Our trees, specific trees, are 117 to 155 years old. So by only looking at a 18-inch DBH, you will totally miss trees 20, 40, 60, 80 years old. So it's really important that we stay with the 6-inch DBH. Typically, when people buy trees for new plantings, they're no more than 3 to 4 inches in diameter, and after 3 to 5 years, they're well established. So a 6-inch diameter tree has been well established at that site. I think that is really important. And the other piece that is very important with the revised draft that you have is the addition of all of the species that our original proposal had included. I also think, I know that we've taken out the certified arborist. I think the decision was made that other people could identify trees, but I just wanted to make the comment that if anybody has walked through a woodlot with someone like Anna, an arborist immediately recognizes, almost immediately, what trees are. So it takes very little time. So I think what you have in front of you is a good ordinance. It provides a good foundation for us. It's really important in contributing to our infrastructure of trees in the city. In order to have a canopy that's healthy, we need trees of diverse sizes. We can't have a healthy tree canopy with only new plantings and heritage trees. We need a variety of trees. So I would encourage you to ask any questions you might have as well. As you've heard, we have gone through the process of vetting all of these concerns with the management as well as the expert materials. There are a lot of cities throughout our country who have tree protection and tree preservation ordinances. And I just want to cite one of the ordinances that Madison has is that if you have an oak tree on your private property, you have to have a permit to prune it. It doesn't cost you anything, but you have to have a permit. So throughout the country and throughout Wisconsin and throughout our local region, there are ordinances that protect the infrastructure of trees that is important to our entire community. So I'll stop now unless you have any questions.
Thanks, Linda. I wanted to mention, as I've been following along for a while now, I didn't get to every tree advisory committee meeting, but really appreciate the work that's been done. And I did observe the Community and Economic Development Authority meeting last week, and it was of interest to me that there was one member, and I had a phone connection for Zoom, so I couldn't see who was speaking, but one fellow on the committee was asking why what was the name of that tree on it?
Box elder, Eastern Magundo,
Yeah, why box elders weren't on there being protected. And it raises a good point that actually protects developers, that there is a specific list. The list is specific, important native trees. And so if you had a scenario where a developer had X number of acres loaded with trees not on this list, and you have neighbors saying, don't cut it down, it's a tree, well, here the developer can say, I'm under the obligation to identify where this group of trees is, not every tree. And no developer is required to save every tree. And the other points that I think are important from my perspective are that, again, it's been stated, but it's a plan that is presented to the Plan Commission, and there is no obligation to save them. They're identified so they can be discussed, and it gives the Plan Commission the discretion to decide if a grouping, for example, if there's an older tree, but it's just smack in the middle of everywhere and it can't be saved, but we've also found that in a different corner, there's a handful of trees that are 6, 8, 10 inches big, that might be the area to think about. Where the park should be, or is that where conservancy should be? So it provides discretion to the Plan Commission that they would otherwise not have had. So those are my comments. Anybody else have comments? Go ahead.
I'll add something too, looking at this from sort of my personal perspective. a design team might have the best of intentions in preserving trees and green spaces on a site, but if they're not given the proper information to start with, they can't do as good of a job as even the whole team might like to do, just because there are blind spots. So one of those blind spots is often trees, particularly important trees. You know, we're often given this cloud is trees, this cloud is the forest. Okay, you know, they might all be buckthorn and box elder, in which case we don't care. Or, you know, maybe they're 18-inch oak trees. So not only does this preserve our trees, this also allows us to have better design spaces and better design communities, which obviously I don't have to describe the benefits of that. So I see no negative sides to this ordinance. The costs associated with it are not nothing, but in relationship to the other costs associated with developing these types of projects, even just from the design side, not even the infrastructure and construction side, it's almost negligible. So I fully support this.
Okay.
I have just a question and just background. My first major was forestry, so I love trees.
Oh, excellent.
So, from Stevens Point. But fully supportive of this. But if you have any, maybe not part of the meeting right now, but I'd love to hear more about climate resiliency and how we're also thinking future as climate change becomes more reality and our heritage trees become less apparent in our community. What are our plans going forward? And is this list complete is, I guess, the question, to then think about drought resistance and other things.
Yep. Well, so I think you bring up a good point. So our first list, if I can just answer the question. So the first list that we were going to try and use was our desirable tree planting list, which is much more extensive, but that's not really what you find in the landscape in the areas that we're talking about platting. And so we kind of ended up changing it to what's probably there. And so that's kind of why the species list is what it is. If you look, it's a pretty specific map, and I should have had it. I should have added it to this presentation, but it's a pretty specific map that's part of the comp plan that indicates where future neighborhoods will be coming from. And it's kind of the railroad corridor on the eastern side of the city, and kind of I think it's what you might call Greenfield here in the western side, going out to Fitchburg Road. So it's a pretty, it's an area that probably was prairie 150 years ago, and what's come up since has been, or what's been planted that's been resilient, mostly is this list. So, but you're right. I mean, and you bring up excellent points, and we do really think about all those things, and it's definitely on our minds. Yep, you're welcome.
Alder Herbst?
I support this also. I have concerns. Number one, stop showing the Mequon ordinance. That is unconstitutional. If I lived there, it'd be prying my chainsaw from my dead dying hands. But it's your personal property. My concern, two concerns. So one, we're locked into the smart growth. And it's across the street from where I work. You can't plant an apple tree. Those houses are so close together. So our one hand, well, what we're going to do is smart. Can't plant any trees in that. That's in conflict.
True.
And I have an issue with that. But the second issue, I have a great distrust of government and additional regulations. And my concern is this will be used. We have plenty of lawyers, and they'll find some way to stop good projects. They'll all right, well, this tree is there, and then all the plan commission, it was mostly people that are appointed. It's not necessarily all elected officials, and all the people will show up. You can't let that development go there. This tree needs to stay. And my concern is it'll be used as a vehicle to stop things instead of its intended effect is to improve our city. So those are my only two comments.
Okay, thanks. Linda, I see you would like to add some information.
Oh, you're on mute, Linda.
Hi. Mr. Herbst, I just have a follow-up question to your comment about the smart growth plans. Who approves that?
Smart Code, it's Plan Commission.
They do? Those plans are approved by the Plan Commission?
Yep.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, and one of the things is about the smart code, and Alder Herbst can help me if I'm going in the wrong direction, but I think the way that works is there's far fewer hoops to jump through to create a development plan with a lot of times higher density. But as Alder Herbst pointed out, it's sometimes, that sounds great, like, oh, we're going to streamline things, but there really isn't the same process as a platting process where you can identify trees, et cetera. However, isn't Terra Vesa part of a smart code development?
Yes, it is.
And there was work done by city staff to work with that developer, irrespective of smart code, and there were trees that were identified to be worked around.
Yes.
So it's not that there's no input from the city, but the city has to be intentional about it.
Yes.
When it comes to smart code.
Yes.
Versus the other, because this ordinance only affects the platting process.
Right.
Which leaves out anybody coming to the city with smart code. Okay, I think I'm right, and if not, the calls and letters will be coming in.
Yeah, you need to ask Deanna.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, somehow it happened in Terra Vesa.
Yeah.
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 So, any other questions, comments? So, what was my motion? It was to approve the ordinance is also approved by CETA and Plan Commission, and we have a second. No further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, citizens, also for coming to speak.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
thanks, Craig and Linda.
Thank you.
All right. We have the proposed operating budget, 5D. Scott?
Yes, and what if I can get to it, we can begin to start to roll through it. And basically what I've got is there's both the park division and the park and forestry and the recreation division. And these are our line items for that budget. And this is the 2023 expenditure budget. And what I did when I'm proposing changes, I made them with pencil or pen. So the first change is with the golf course maintenance in 289. That does go by ordinance, goes up annually $1,000 per year. In the contractual services, what we do is we contract the median mowing and median landscape maintenance. And actually what Jordan was able to do is he did an RFP, and we did get some prices. And the prices that we received is pretty close. It's right in the ballpark of that $94,250 per year for the next 3 years. So that's pretty accurate. What we did do is proposing to add $3,000 into the prairie longgrass burning maintenance line item. We do have a lot of fence out there, and it looks like we may have some additional fence out there that we'll need to maintain. So we did increase that from $10,000 to $20,000. And then in the 3550, the neighborhood forestry item, there's a couple different things rolled up into that, including the EAB. But there was a couple years back where they reduced. Originally, it was $10,000 for tree replacement for the EAB. It was reduced to $5,000, and what we're proposing is to get it back to the original $10,000. So at the end of the day, this 290 was $183,750 in 2023, and is proposed to be $201,750 in 2024. And then if you go in, we're still in the park budget, the 323 uniforms need to be increased to 9,000 from 41. And what does happen at times is there's kind of a correcting entry, if you would. So this is what it actually is costing the city for the uniforms. And then if you go down to 335, we did want to increase it to 7,500 for the maintenance of the vehicles, but actually make it vehicle maintenance, which would include the forestry equipment. 340, forestry supplies is going to go up to 2,000. We did want to add $1,000 for porta potties. We did pay for a porta potty for Memorial Day this year, along with, we do the town of Madison prices, they'll remain in there. So we increased this line by $2,000 to $24,000.
So, and Scott, for Memorial Day, that's at the Gorman, for the observances at the Gorman Veterans Park?
Yep, the handicap, we did bring in a handicap porta potty. So, and again, these are at times correcting, so it really kind of gets to what we actually are spending. But yeah, that was an additional expense in the porta potty area. 350, and again, this is a correction that we are spending about $750 in fire extinguisher maintenance for the park buildings. And then also to the shade structures at McKee Farms Park, the fabric is getting wore, so we're going to need to begin to start to replace the fabric there, so that's the additional $7,500. Again, 360, we got a lot of drinking fountains out there, so there's a lot of maintenance that needs to go in, parts, so we wanted to add $1,000 to that item. And that's really the parks portion of it, park and forestry. Recreation, the 245, this is the ActiveNet, which is a computer software program that the recreation department uses. And ActiveNet, they get their cut for every transaction. So this is really a good sign in that there's more transactions being run through ActiveNet, so we need to increase that to 6,000. Now the contractual services, this was, and I included, we had to do a budget amendment for the recreation department, which is additional information that I put in communication, but this is the portion that we have to pay the contractors through the recreation department. We collect the fee and the contractor gets 80%. So this too is a good indication that there's a lot of activity in the contractual services. So we actually have to increase it from 45,000 to 90,000, which we did get a budget amendment through in order to do that for 2024. The music license in 320 has gone up a bit. And then, just kind of some correcting for the WPRA conference and some staff training. And then actually to the 345, this was the dollars that were allocated to the Fitchburg Star, but the council has decided not to work with the Fitchburg Star at this point, but we still wanted to keep the allocation in there because actually what we're going to do is they're going to change that title to community communications / outreach. So it's going to be the same, PR kind of thing. It just won't be through the Fitchburg Star. But that's still yet to be determined, as I understand. So we would keep that $4,200 in there. Then I did want to just bring attention to, these are the recreation program revenues, community center rental revenues, and park shelter athletic field revenues. And you can see in 2019, we had $245,000 and change. In 2020, which was the COVID year, you can see that went down. 2021, we made a good rebound. 2022 was even better. And then year to date, through 6 or 7 months, we're really doing good in getting, the services that are being provided, people are paying for them. So I just wanted to kudos to all of these shelter reservations, registrations are all run through the recreation department and their staff, and that's quite a quite an undertaking, so. And I may have sent you recently kind of a weekly schedule. Did I send you that weekly schedule of all the diamonds that were prepared and all the shelters that were reserved and the sound pit permits and all of that kind of stuff? So that, it really is a busy time, so. A lot of repeat customers, which is good. That's, people are happy with the services that are being provided. Now, also as part of this, I wanted to include, and I see PC, you're still here, so you're going to be elated by some of these. But these are the fees that we're proposing to be charging for our services. The cemetery, this has been the price in 223 since I've been here, which has been a bit of time. And actually, CC and the Recreation Department did a little bit of a survey. And we are proposing to increase those plot fees. And we were definitely the lowest when we did the survey, and we're not going to be the lowest. We're just going to be a tick above the lowest with those additional fees. Now, one thing that is a bit confusing, you guys, is that the community center rental fees, what we did, or what the rec department did, and actually if I go to just a recent email that I sent you, this is what it looked like before. 2023, which is really kind of confusing. So what the recreation department did is they itemized it for each individual. Resident small room weekday 4 hours, resident small room weekday for 8 hours to have the price. And the things that were changed from 2023 are, if you go down to the Fitchburg, it's the medium-sized room for the weekend for the resident. This one right here was 70 is changed to that's changed to 100 from 70. This one went to wait a second here. Nope. It going up here, this one right here, I'm sorry, is changed to 100. All these other ones are the same, but we began when it got to the medium room Fitchburg resident for the weekend for the 4-hour block. That was 70 and it went to 100. This 8-hour block was 125 and it went to 185. The 4-hour block for the large room was 280 and it went to 300. The 480 was 395 and went to 480. And those are really, we have maintenance and supervisors and all of those kinds of things that we need to cover the cost of. So those were the adjustments from 2023 to 2022 or to 2024. And then the only two that were changed for the non-resident were in the 125. So that was a 4-hour weekend block for the medium. That went from 95 to 125. And then the one below it was 165 before in 2023, and that went to 225. So those are some slight increases, which really are justified with the expenses that we're paying in order to have those rooms rented. So that's a community center one, and then it's pretty easy if you go to the park shelter reservations. The $275 for the large event on Saturday and Sunday at McKee, Southdale, Swan Creek, Tower Hill, and Quarry Hill went from $275 to $300. And again, with these larger events, there's more garbage, there's more things to be picked up. So we felt that an increase from $275 to $300 was reasonable. We did the same thing down here for, it kind of goes, McKee Farms Park is the next one. Again, it went from $500 to $550. Which is a slight increase for the large event. McGaw went from $200 to $225. And then Hugo Jamestown went from 300 to 325. So some slight increases. Due to the larger events, there's more garbage that we've got to deal with and get rid of and those kinds of things. The ball diamond, here's one for you. Here's Patrick's. The lights, we raised for the ball field lights from 10 to 15 for the resident and from 20 to 25 for the non-resident. And then what we also did is we increased the ball diamond practice for a 90-minute block from 5 to 10 for residents and 15 to 20 for non-residents, and kind of did the same thing for, the soccer fields and the tennis courts, those kinds of things. So there's some slight increases, which we still, $10 for a 90-minute block is very reasonable, going from 5 to 10. So those I wanted to include as part of, I will give you a fair warning too that we're looking at some policy changes for the community center use, but we're going to bring that at a different time. These are just the budget and the fees that we're charging for the use of our facilities. And certainly up for any questions that you may have. And then what I'll do if all's good, I'll transpose this and get it to the finance for it. I will tell you though that there's one staffing recommendation is that the forester natural position I'm going to recommend to go to full-time. I will tell you that Baker Tilly is currently doing a staffing project assessment of the city. So there may, depending on that staffing recommendation and what comes forth with that, there may be some additional staffing that will incur in 2024 that we don't really, you guys, we really don't know about that yet. But that might be some additional increases in 2024 regarding staffing.
Okay. What I should have done, because you needed a motion to approve, we need to vote, correct?
Sorry.
No, I barreled ahead and we all did. We need a motion to approve this proposed operating budget.
Motion. Motion.
Oh, Heidi, okay.
I'll give Heidi the motion and Sarah the second. It was a close tie, but, so go ahead with any additional comments or questions anyone has. Sarah, go ahead.
I just have a question. Is pickleball considered tennis? Or I didn't see it within the breakout.
Boy, that's a good catch. That's a good catch. It would be the same.
I think we should probably add it as a header.
Absolutely. Well, that is definitely a good catch. Yep. We will do that.
And then I guess my follow-up too is then for the tennis court lights, would the qualifier of the 2-hour time block be needed? Because it's not added right now, but is that if you include pickleball as part of that criteria, would you need to add the 2-hour time block?
For pickleball? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. 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 Well, and boy, we currently, yeah. We'd need to add the time block.
Heidi Reynolds.
Just one question, Scott, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but all of these expenditures increase, they do include what we would need to use for incorporating the town of Madison?
Yep. There, we did include the Southdale Park is in the park reservation. That's the only facility really that we have in the Southdale, in the town of Madison that we can rent. Does that answer that, Heidi?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Put it to a vote. Those in favor of, go ahead, Dave.
Just a comment, not related to budget, but I think Scott and the Parks crew, the Jamestown Eagle Park in my neighborhood is used constantly for parties, and it is so well maintained, and everyone that's there just has rave things to say about it. So I appreciate their diligence, keeping it clean in a nice place. Sorry to get off track.
No, that's a good kind of off track. Okay, we'll vote. Those in favor of this proposed operating budget, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The operating budget is approved at this level. Okay, so we have, item 6A is the Sunnyside Dog Park, and we have Patrick Cheney registering, saying all these ideas are covered well enough, just fine by existing methods. And we had, Jake Johnson spoke early. He wanted to get back home to take care of his kids. And then on 6A, the dog park rules, Karen Lawrence, Oak Haven Road, most park users and those who know dogs, behavior realized dogs, not just certain breeds, will have an occasional fight. I can't read some of this, but basically, I think speaking that, sort of along the lines that Jake Johnson was saying, that dogs will be dogs, people will be people, and trying to reinforce the rules is the right approach. Okay. So Scott, do you have
Well, and
introduction here?
what kind of prompted this is there was two residents that appeared before the Common Council, and they shared concerns with the council regarding a dog bite situation at Sunnyside. And what they were suggesting recommendations were security cameras, park attendant to help manage this type of situation, and possibly banning certain dog species from the park. But I think at the end of the day, it as Jake indicated, these things are going to happen. Not to say that we, don't think that it's a serious issue, but as we continue to promote and let people know that, if your dog is a bit on the edgy side, please don't bring them, and those kinds of things. So I think if anything else, I wanted to get it before the Park Commission because of the comments that we did receive. So,
Any comments from our board? When I read the comments, I can appreciate that if someone's on the receiving end of a dog bite, it's unpleasant. But I've followed the subject a little bit over time and space, and I don't think that banning specific breeds really solves the problem in itself, and that is another thing that can lead to lawsuits.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I would just reiterate that we as a family owned a pit bull that did not get along with other dogs, and as a responsible pit bull owner, we did not take our dog to dog parks. We recognized. So I'm hoping that through education, it never gets to the point where we're banning certain breeds. We are lucky enough to have a very sociable bully breed now who loves other dogs, and so she's not a problem. But just having that wherewithal to understand, I think that going the path of breeding certain breeds is a slippery slope. So I'll just go on the record for that position.
Yes. Any other comments? We have this under our discussion/action. I don't know that we're going to enact any of these, but, talking about it here, we can certainly talk about it again if problems don't go away or get worse.
and as Jake alluded, additional signage and additional communication through Facebook and those kinds of things were the actions that we were taking to try and let people know and educate people.
Okay. So we can move on then to Communications 7. We have Patrick Cheney registered regarding 7 in opposition to, I'm assuming that's 7A. It says 7A. So you're registering in opposition to the McGaw Park Path. Okay. Go ahead.
Yep, this was just a result of Park Commission members wanting an update on the path, so I tried to do the best I could to take some pictures and give everybody an update. I will tell you that we've gone through there, and we are beginning to start to try, and you can kind of see how things are beginning to start to grow up on the side, so we'll try to treat those kinds of things, but I think certainly, you know, and this is actually the path that leads up to the new, where the trees were removed, and you can kind of see a little bit of the this is the barrier that Parks put in there to avert people from the private property is over here a little bit. And then this kind of goes up the hill from that area. You know, not really much of a, I don't know, hopefully it provides a little bit of an update for, as requested by the Park Commission last month.
Yeah.
The next item is the Dowley Conservancy. I know that was another item that the Park Commission was interested in, and this is actually a draft letter that I'd be interested in your thoughts and feedback, certainly if not tonight, shortly, because this is something that I did want to send to the direct neighbors of the Dowley Conservancy to let them know that we're looking to begin to start to try and reach those desired future conditions as identified in our paperwork, in the goals that are listed there for the Dowley Conservancy. So that's that. And then, as I mentioned, we had to do a direct referral for the 290 account in the contractual services for the Recreation Department. And actually, you know, we budgeted 45, and at the time that I did this, we had already spent 43,289. So we definitely needed to get some additional dollars in that account. So I wanted to provide an update to the commission regarding that. Well, and then here's my memo that was accompanied to that budget amendment request. And then we just have our reports.
I have a question about Southdale Park. I'm going to slide this under reports. Are those cooling stations, the water sprinklers, are they working?
Yep.
So right now kids can run up and.
They can.
So cool. That's very nice.
They can. Well, and come to find out, they create a bit of a mess, so the town just didn't turn them on.
Oh, well, yeah, they don't have a concrete pad or something, so I suppose they get a little muddy.
They will, yeah, but
I bet, but it's
fun, right?
Yeah, let's get
It's
one of those in Wildwood Park.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, Jordan, I think he mentioned that they're getting playground mulch in there. Unfortunately, I don't know if you have heard about it, but we had some fireworks and things at McKee. Along at Southdale, too, we had some fireworks, and there was actually a grass fire that burned a little bit of Southdale. So, yeah. And there's some crabapple trees that we think may have been burned because of the fire. But
Oh, that's too bad.
But Jay, we're really made a couple contacts with the Southdale group, and we're looking to get together to figure out what the group and the neighborhood might want to see as improvements for. We're doing a basketball court this year along with the Park ID sign, but there's dollars allocated for additional improvements in 2024. So we're trying to determine what the neighborhood might be interested in. But certainly a cement concrete pad underneath those spray amenities would be a good improvement that we could make there.
Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So nobody has questions about any of the staff reports beyond what we just talked about, future agenda items? Anyone have any requests? And what do you see on the horizon, Scott?
Well, I see, specific, certainly we want to get a temporary sign, or temporary fence up at Hillside Heights, but then to come back with some permanent kind of suggestions, but we'll, work with stormwater and make sure we put, and I'm thinking what I'll do is we'll go out there and kind of identify with Lath and then send the let the neighborhood know that that's where we're looking to put it and see if they have any thoughts and try to get something up there sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. That's great that you're going to fit that in. I'm sure the residents will appreciate that.
Continuing to work on Stoner Prairie Park Master Plan, Egg Park Master Plan. So Park and Open Space Plan, I think we're going to get that in August. So that's rounding the final turn. Crescent Crossing, both the dog park, our dog playground, and the tot lot is under construction. So they're hoping to get that finished soon. Pickleball, Jordan was able to get a couple prices for the patio. The chamber got a big event in the middle of August, like 19th. So we're going to be at Jordan. I don't know how he did it, but he's able to get someone to come in and get that flat work done prior to that event. Get some slats for the windscreen, and we're going to order picnic benches, picnic tables, but we won't have those before their event. But it's
A lot cooking.
Lots.
All right, and so our next two meetings are August 3rd and September 7th. Yeah, go ahead.
Scott, I had a memo, up at, the tennis courts up at Chicory Meadows, at the crack, and the memo indicated the mayor had talked to you and you're looking at some options for repairing that. Can you give us any update on that?
Yep. And it's, we've got a couple different tennis courts that are in that same condition. And, the CIP does call for the repair of those, but there needs to be donations or grants. But, the idea of trying to temporarily fill the cracks. So Jordan is looking to see if that's something that we could do in-house. He's willing to try and do something, but certainly you can professionally get those done, which would cost some dollars. But we're working to try and do something temporarily to help the situation.
Yeah, I looked. I was researching, and they make a. You can get the same color as the tennis court. It's made just for those cracks. That thing. I'm sure you looked at the same thing.
Oh yeah. It's basically. You can't put tar or anything in there. It's basically like, drywall, where you're doing drywall and put it in there. But there is material that you can purchase to place in there. And Jordan, like I mentioned, Jordan is willing to try and do something like that to get a temporary fix for him.
Let's see what happens. Yeah,
Great,
let's try something out.
We're working on it.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
One other, and before you finish your report and comments, I'd be curious to learn more and maybe be a resource around the parks and open space plan, especially around equitable access, thinking about communities of color and limited income folks getting access. We all are here because we know the benefits of parks. So I'd be curious, or at least be a resource on looking at that lens with regards to this plan.
And Christopher, I think you're going to be a valuable part to the team here, and if you can continue to look at the documents through that lens, that would be much appreciated.
Sure.
And typically what'll happen is the Park Commission will take a look at it, and they'll get because they, at the end of the day, are going to be the author of the plan that'll go to the Common Council and then referred out to different committees. So you guys will get the first look at it, and any kind of what I'm anticipating is you'll see it in August, and then it'll come back to you, and we'll make any edits and all of those kinds of things, and that'll be the plan that's going to be authored by the Park Commission. That'll go to the council for referral, then it'll be referred out to all the different groups, back to the Park Commission, and then finally approved by the council. So there'll be a couple different, because there's, other Park Commission members who are interested in different pieces of it, so we'll definitely want to make sure everybody gets a chance to take a look at it.
So what we're going to see is what we had been working on while Wade was still here.
Yes.
And that was limited in scope, correct? It was just on the action items? Or will we look at the entire document?
Well, really the meat of it is the action items, and those, and certainly there's going to be, one of the big things we're working on now is the last plan, there was 60 or so properties, and we got like 90 now. So just to update the inventory to make that accurate of what our holdings are is going to be a big piece of it. But the action items and those things are going to be generally the same, but certainly it's kind of an update. We've accomplished some things, and
Right.
we want to add some things, but yeah, it's things that the Park Commission has seen in the past.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to mention regarding the tree preservation ordinance, the referrals go to two more places. July 10th, the Resource Conservation Committee, they meet at 6:30, and July 13th, the final stop before back to council is Tree Advisory Committee, and that's the 13th at 4 p.m. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move adjournment.
Chris, our new Chris gets the second.
Christopher, you're in the books.
All right. Those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're adjourned, and it is 7:45.